It's exactly 1 month and 1 day after the first COVID-19 positive case was confirmed in Kenya. But the country is still far from the prediction of, thankfully that is, from the prediction of 5,000 positive cases by mid-April. Could the worst still be ahead for Kenya as we are now told how the virus is spreading within the counties? Now, to have this discussion, we are joined by Professor Anzala, specialist in virology and immunology at the University of Nairobi. Prof, thank you for speaking with us. And my first question is one that I ask respectfully because I know that there are families that are at this time mourning their loved ones. But the question is Kenya winning the war against COVID-19, or have we simply not tested enough people to be able to say that, Prof?
I could answer that in two ways. One, true, we have not tested enough, and that's what we plan to do with the Ministry of Health, to test critically. But on the second hand, the measures to the response that were put in place from the very initial stages, we are beginning to look at them critically to see whether they are going to make any effect. But from what we have seen so far, I'm sure we are going to win this war.
What would you say is Kenya's biggest challenge when it comes to testing? We're hearing that Ghana has tested over 37,000 people. South Africa has tested over 60,000 people. Kenya, I don't think we've gotten to 10,000 yet. What's the biggest challenge?
Actually, the biggest challenge is the supply chain. As you are aware, globally, everywhere, there is a problem. North America, South America, Europe, China is still having problems. So the problem is supply chain. So slowly, companies are beginning to release these kits. So I can assure you that in the next couple of weeks, you'll actually see a difference in terms of us wrapping up testing in this country.
Okay. We are also hearing reports in other African countries that they have begun, in a sense, mass testing of certain townships. We've heard that Ethiopia, for example, is doing testing in townships. These are sort of high population areas similar to some of the ones that we have here in Nairobi. Similar situation in South Africa. Should we be doing that in Nairobi and some of the sort of high profile counties at this time?
The whole issue is that each country must look at its own outbreak and put in measures properly.
Okay.
Our advisory is actually not to go into mass testing immediately, but rather go into what we call target testing. Target testing is where we are going to look at very high-risk counties and maybe put our more efforts there so that if you get a cluster, you can actually reinforce that particular cluster to ensure that it doesn't create another cluster. So our proposal to the government is actually to go target, begin with healthcare workers who are on the front line to see how they are, move then to any person presenting at a healthcare facility with an upper or a lower respiratory tract infection. The third group is to look at all hotel individuals who have been taking care of visitors who are coming in. We want to be able to target those groups as we go slowly. And at the same time, target the areas where we have already seen a cluster, and at the same time concentrate on the high-risk counties. This is Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, and also look at the border towns. This is Migori County, look at Busia, and look at Kakamega.
Okay.
So we want to be very systematic in the way we do our things, and then inform what kind of responses we put in all these areas.
Prof, tell me this. What has been the impact so far of some of the measures that you have put in place? You've asked Kenyans to wear masks. There's been a restriction on movement in particular counties. A lot of talk about social distancing. Wash your hands as well. Has this helped to not lead to that worst case scenario of 5,000 positive cases or 10,000 positive cases?
About 2-3 weeks ago, you had a communique from the Ministry of Health giving us figures, the figures that we have just quoted about 1,000, 10,000.
Yes.
Those modeling data we did looking at the worst case scenario. But now, if you look at the way our epidemic is evolving, you can actually see that the curve is not following that worst case scenario. So to some extent, something is happening. But it's too early to begin to celebrate. We want to critically look at what is going to happen this month and next month. Because what we have learned from other countries, usually the first month, the second and the third month usually define exactly how this outbreak is going to look like.
So, Prof, when can we celebrate? You say we can't celebrate now. When can we celebrate in your estimation?
Now, let's talk about May, end of May.
Not June, end of May.
End of May, because if we look at April critically, we look at May critically, and I'm urging my fellow Kenyans, let adhere to what has been said out there. Then end of May, we can begin to look at exactly what is going on, and the story might be different. It is too early to make any conclusion right now.
A journalist always says finally, so this is my last finally. So if the projections are no longer 5,000, 10,000, what are they now?
I know we have those projections. We have given them to the ministry. It is not something that I would like to discuss now because this is confidential information that will be released by the ministry at the right time. But those are the projections we are looking at to make the various decisions you see being made as we move along.
Professor, I would really love to get my hands on those projections. Hopefully you'll be able to share with us those with us sometime, or the ministry as well. Thank you for speaking with us, Professor Anzala, a specialist virology and immunology at the University of Nairobi, for coming to shed light on questions that I am sure many of you have had at